Good morning, Quadcopter 101 here. And before we get started, let me get the shout outs out of the way. Today's shout out goes to RC Everything 247. I think that's probably 24/7. RC Everything 24/7. And Splainers. Both of these guys recently were the first to say first in one of my recent videos, and thus wins a shout out. So what do I got here today? I got the one on the left here is what I'm reviewing today. That's the new Mirarobot M600 VTOL aircraft. Vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. It's very similar to a previously released aircraft called the Mirage E500, except it's a little bit bigger, a little more streamlined, quite a bit more streamlined actually than the E500. Let's put them up side by side here, show you them together. I want to put my cheat sheet. I got a cheat sheet, folks, by the way. Always, if you plan on doing these type of reviews, strongly recommend you get a cheat sheet to carry in your pocket here, so you forget some of these parameters while you're doing this review. By the way, I got a kind of breezy day today, so this is going to be interesting, reviewing this VTOL aircraft on a breezy day. But looking at the two, again, this one is a little bit larger wingspan than the E500. Again, a little more streamlined than the E500. Both have brushless motors. I'll tell you what the brushless are in here in a second. But other than that, they're both vertical takeoff, and they both have horizontal stabilization. So when you go, stabilization makes it very easy for beginner pilots to fly it. And also, you can turn off the stabilization and fly full 3D to do acrobatics. Now, the one thing I did not like about the E500 is that in stabilization mode, it would fly like a pancake, very flat, and do sliding turns when you want to do a turn. There was no banking with the auto stabilization system of the E500. I'm not sure if this does the same thing. We're going to find out here shortly when we fly it. But I'm hoping that Mirarobot had the sense to include banking in those turns to be, you know, more realistic turns for the aircraft as compared to the way the stabilization system holds this one super flat. Okay, let's go over the no, I haven't mentioned the motors yet. Hold on, now I got to get out that cheat sheet so we go over the motors on this thing. They are brushless motors, 2206 2600 kV motors with 6 amp ESCs. If you look inside there, I think you can see them, that brushless motor inside there. Again, 6 amp ESC. Let's open the bottom here and let you see inside here. It opens from the back, but it comes with a 2S battery, 800 milliampere hour battery. There's its flight control board with its gyro stabilization system is built into that flight control board, and this is its receiver. It's a Mirarobot receiver. I tried to bind this with other formats on my not T8SG, T12 jumper, and I could not get it to bind. So it's kind of a I think it's kind of a proprietary protocol, but you know, I haven't tried all of the potential receivers that it could bind to on the T12, but so far I haven't been lucky. In fact, you know, I wanted to fly it with my T12 jumper today, but that is not going to happen. Now, speaking of that, this comes available both in bind and fly, or ready to fly, which I got. I got the ready to fly version I want to show you. It comes with a transmitter. Looks like a nice transmitter too, but we'll see here shortly. It also comes available in bind and fly with FreeSky receiver installed in there, 2A, AFHDS 2A receiver in there, and also available in plug and play. You provide your own receiver, and finally available in kit form. Now, the price differences between these are not very much, okay? Especially the bind and fly versus the ready to fly. You know, we're talking about $3 or $4 difference. So I recommend, if you're considering this, consider the ready to fly version, ready to go. So let's go over the receiver next, or the transmitter. Here's the transmitter. We got one 2-position switch and one 3-position switch on the right. Now the 2-position switch, you'd figure that this position would be armed, and you'd be wrong. This is disarmed. Pushing back arms the motors on this particular aircraft, so be very careful. I put a little label here just to make sure I got that right. But this right position switch has mode 0, mode 1, and mode 2. Mode 0 is vertical takeoff. Mode 1 is stabilized horizontal flight, and Mode 2 is 3D stabilization system off, letting you fly it acrobatically. The other buttons on this, we have a slew of buttons on the bottom here. Dual rate for the rudder. You can go starting low. I'm going to start low, go to high. I'm not sure what the mix button does, but we have reverse. If you want to reverse the signals for using this transmitter, say with another, you can switch these signals up to reverse the inputs from pitch down would make it pitch up, and vice versa. And finally, this is your trim for yaw, trim for throttle. It does have a throttle trim. It does have trim for pitch and trim for roll. And this roll one also is a secondary button. If you hold it to the right and turn on the power, puts this in bind mode. Just in case you do lose bind with the aircraft, you can rebind it with this transmitter. Well, let's fire it up and go for a flight. Let me get this airplane out of the way. Hopefully we can fight this breeze. But first off, make sure this is in disarmed, because these motors do spin, and make sure that this is in vertical takeoff. These motors do spin when this thing is armed, so make sure that this is disarmed. In vertical position, vertical takeoff, they spin in idle, so you got to be careful with this. So make sure that your transmitter is set disarmed. And also make sure you match red to red and black to black when you're inserting this red JST connector for this battery. Okay, let's get that in there. That there. Close it up. Now I'm going to put this sideways toward the wind. Why do you want to do that? Well, if you're going to do vertical takeoff, you want to knife into the winds with the wings to the side position. I should have turned this transmitter on before binding, but we'll see if that's going to be a problem. There we go. See, when you arm this thing, those motors automatically go to idle when you're in vertical takeoff. Okay, I'm going to stand back a bit, put it in vertical takeoff, arm the motors, and try to take off like a quadcopter. I'm not doing that. You hear that woo 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 woo? I'm not sure why it's doing a woo woo, but it's hovering. Let's go up a bit higher. Let's come back down, lowering the throttle. I'm trying to bring it back to me, lowering the throttle and hovering it. Well, it's flying. Okay, let's go up higher. More throttle. We're going to switch to forward flight now. Well, the rudder needs higher rate. I got to switch that dual rate. There we go. Went to higher rate there. The rudder was on low rate. Okay, we are in high rate now. And lowering the throttle. It's actually flying kind of nice in stable flight. Let's see if I can bring it down lower so keep it close to us. I got a little ridge line straight ahead of me here, and again the wind is in my face and it hits that ridge line, and this airplane is soaring right now. I'm trying to bring it back down. There we go. Okay, even in dual rate high, or I switched it to high, it turns so slowly in the stabilized mode. I'm almost full rudder to the right. But it is banking turns, I'll give you that. And try to bring it down low past us, but I'm full rudder to the left, and that's its turn. It's barely turning. Okay, let's bring it back to us. I'm going to try to do a slow flyby here. Reducing throttle some more. Slow flyby. Let's try to repeat that. We'll go this way. Now again, it turns so slowly. Let's do a right turn. Very slow, very docile, very slow turns. Full left rudder, and that's its turn. Full left rudder. and just can barely turn. Okay, letting go of the sticks. Let's see how. Okay, coming by me. Okay, let's take it up higher this time now. Actually, let's go to full. Okay, I turned off stabilization. We're in 3D mode. It still seems to have some stabilization, folks. It's like horizon mode, actually, is the feeling I'm getting here. I'm trying to give it full left rudder. I had put it into vertical flight there because it was heading to the ground, folks. I'm having a little bit of problems here fighting this wind today. So I think I'll leave it in stabilization for the rest of this flight, for this first flight of this thing. But boy, its left rudder is so slow in turning. Turns to the right, okay, but turning to the left is agonizingly slow. Wonder if I can give it some trim to the left, if that'll help it. My left turn. No, it don't matter what I do. The turns are slow. I'm going back to the other dual rate. I switched back. I moved that dual rate button down for rudder to the down position now, and it turns a little bit faster. Okay, let's bring it down low again. I am flying too far away for you guys to see this, but I'm trying to turn it. There we go. That dual rate seemed to fix it. It turns a little better when turning to the left. Needs a little bit of, what do you call it there, balance. I did try to balance that, and I want to talk about that. Let's bring it in and I'll talk about that for a second here. Turning to the left, trying to turn to the left. That's turning to the left better than it was. And bringing it over, and we're going to switch to vertical mode once it gets overhead here. Or actually, I'm going to take it upwind first, and then switch to vertical mode. Because it's going to drift as we're coming back down. And go into vertical. Well, with the wind, I strongly recommend not trying to land in vertical mode because it's just not going to work. And what I'm going to do instead is just, and they say in the instructions is, when you get close to the ground, cut the throttle or smash into a bush like that. That shouldn't hurt it. Not that little creosote bush. Let's take a look at what we got here. Now again, it is banking. It's doing banking turns, and notice I'm unstabilized. See how the, let's see if you can see that better this way. Notice how the control surfaces automatically turn to bring it back down as you bank left or right. Say if the wind is buffeting this, it will automatically counter that. Say the wind pushes it down, nose down. See how the, what are these called? Aileron, or elevator? No, ailerons, ailerons. See how they pitch up to bring the aircraft back up, and if you pitch up too high, they pitch downward to bring it back down. So that is working fine. But I tried to land this thing in this wind vertically, and even though I was going knife edge, it was very difficult to land this with any wind at all vertically. So you are going to, if there's wind, you're going to probably need to land horizontal. And again, you just bring it down close to the ground, then cut the throttle and let it skid, or smash into a creosote bush, if you will. So let's take it back up again, putting it back on the flat level surface, pointing its wings toward the wind, which seems to be that way right now. Switching to vertical. Oh, cutting the throttle. Why did that do that? Because we're armed. Okay, switching, throttle down, throttle, make sure the throttle's all the way down, and then we are in vertical, and And I think I lost signal. Hold on when it did that. So disarming. I also had to turn on the transmitter again to get it to bind. Okay, we are in vertical takeoff, arming the motors, and throttle. When you do these vertical takeoffs, stand back, because those motors get a little wonky there on immediate takeoff. And then going back to horizontal. So don't stand too close to it when you're doing that vertical takeoff. In stabilized mode, it flies nicely, but really, really docile in that stabilized mode. But again, it's for beginners like me. That's one thing, you know, I fly so many quadcopters. But airplanes, I don't fly them enough to keep up in practice. So, you know, I put this in 3D mode. I'm going to get in unusual attitudes very quickly. So that's why I like to fly stabilized aircraft, so that I can make those errors and then switch back to stabilized, hopefully to save the aircraft before it impacts the ground. Okay, we're unstabilized. Go back to stabilized. Okay, I'm using rudder, and now I'm using, before I was using just pitch. Now I'm using rudder control, and it seems to turn much, much faster. So, duh, as they would say. I wasn't using rudder control with the turns. I was just using bank originally. So it's turning much better now. Excuse me for that. My fault. My fault. Let me show you. When I use both, it turns much faster. I was just using bank only before, but now it's flying much, much better. You got to use both rudder and roll. Duh. I'm sorry. My fault. And now it's a much more agreeable flyer, by the way. Look at that thing turn. Turns much better. Include the rudder with it. Trying to stall it. Doesn't want to stall. Okay, with that in mind, let's go up higher now that I got this thing working the way I like it. And it climbs very fast. Okay, switching to 3D. In 3D mode. A loop. Basic loop. One more. One more loop. Okay, that's better. I don't know. Oh, I know why I wasn't using rudder, folks. I know why. Just before I was flying this, I was flying my F959 here, and that doesn't have a rudder. Or it does, well, it does have a rudder, but it's hooked to the aileron control. But now, okay, I'm flying horizontal, stabilized now. But that confused me. Sorry about that. Let's come down lower. Now, this has LVC. So when that battery gets supposedly to 3.45 volts, it's supposed to land itself. The motor is supposed to become sluggish and then not able to fly anymore. It starts to descend, and that means it's telling you it's time to land. Boy, this thing turns on a dime when you give it rudder. God, I feel so silly for not doing that. It turns on a dime when you apply a rudder with it. Rudder and roll. And it does not side slip like the Mirage. The Mirage E500. So this is a much better flyer than the Mirage E500. Much better. In stabilized mode. Trying to go up high again. I'll do a couple more loops. off on that until I feel more comfortable with this airplane. So we'll bring it down low so you can see it. Cutting throttle, cutting throttle. So yeah, again, this is a much better flyer than the E500. For those of you considering the E500, especially in stabilized mode. Now both of the E500 and this one here, the Mirage E500 and this particular aircraft, are both clones of another airplane, another VTOL airplane. The, what is the name of it? E-Flight. E-Flight has a VTOL that looks very similar to these. And again, these are clones of it. Okay, I'm waiting for that battery to die. In this stabilized mode, you could fly this in a small park. Look at that. Really? That's amazing it can turn like that. This turns better than my, what do you call that? X520. I got another VTOL, the X520. But this one turns on a dime much better than any of them. Throw that rudder in with the roll. Amazing turns. Okay, that's enough of these figure eights. Let's try that vertical again. We're going up high again. We're going to go up real high. Let's try vertical up high. And switching vertical. And back to horizontal. I found that instead of using roll for turn, use the rudder to turn the aircraft when it's in vertical. It seems to work much better. Okay, I think I'm getting low. Maybe. Let's go upwind this way. Going over here and vertical. Yeah, too much wind to do it. Sorry. I'm not going to do a vertical landing. But I think you guys get the picture here, and I'm getting tired of waiting for this thing its battery to wear out. Maybe this can go for like 30 minutes or something like that. Oh no, it's getting weak now. Getting weak now. Time to land it. And there we go. Getting weak now. That's our LVC. So that's its flight time. Okay, rundown on this. Vertical takeoff works. It kind of, the motors are kind of go woo, woo, woo when you first take off here. So it's a little bit wonky at first takeoff. So stand back when you're doing the vertical landings or vertical takeoffs. I wasn't able to do a vertical landing today, unfortunately, because of the wind. Too much wind. So you're probably going to need a windless day to do vertical landings. When I first flew this, I was not using rudder with the turns. I was using mostly ailerons to do the turns, and the reason being I was just flying my F959, which is all aileron through the rudder turns, and that confused me. Once I threw in the rudder with this thing was turning on a dime, very rapid turning. So in effect, you can fly this in relatively small parks, small areas, maybe even indoors in a gym. It was a good flyer. I put it in 3D and got a few loops. I wasn't too aggressive here because, it's again kind of a windy day today, and I'm not the best fixed wing pilot out there. So, but when I did get in trouble, and I got in trouble a few times there, all I did was switch it back to either vertical mode or horizontal stabilized mode, and immediately leveled out or immediately went vertical to get me out of those extreme conditions. So that's the Mirarobot M600. Not too bad. So I hope you enjoyed this flight. This is Quadcopter 101, signing out.